Hi, and welcome to the Parenting Playbook podcast. Today, I've got Helen Kelynack with me, who is a hypnotherapist and breathwork practitioner. Now, Helen works with largely breathwork. Do you align those together in the work that you do, Helen?
Yeah, to align them together. I mean, mainly hypnotherapy is my sort of main thing, but breath work comes with that. So I use the both together in sessions and in group work.
Brilliant. So, welcome today, and thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to talk to you today because we're going to be looking at the power of pausing. And this is something that I really advocate in my work, the importance of the breath and how our breath is always there for us. We always have the power to breathe and to calm our system. Yet somehow it eludes most of us. So today we're going to talk about the power of pausing in life, but also in our parenting as well. So tell me a little bit about what you do.
Okay, so hypnotherapy, I mainly help, like we said, women that are feeling perhaps that they want to overcome, self-doubt or overcome fears. And I use the breath work then to support and help the nervous system with the breathing techniques, and then the hypnosis helps with the mindset. So I help women really that have like sort of long-term anxiety, but also when there's a short-term thing. So perhaps they've got a job interview or presentation, or there's something coming up which you feel really nervous about and really fearful about. So when we can work with the breath, we calm in that nervous system so it doesn't see it as a threat. And then we're using mindset to reframe and make it more of a positive experience through the subconscious. So that's kind of how it works together.
Yeah. So, when we talk about the nervous system, for anybody that doesn't know, is that, when our anxiety fires up, we can go into different stages in the nervous system. And one of the things that eludes us when we're anxious is the breath. And when the breath eludes us, then our mind goes foggy. We can't think straight. We're in fight or flight mode, or fight, flight, or freeze mode.
Mm.
So it sounds like what you're doing is being able to help people to really settle their system at a time when their mind is unable to access maybe soothing tools, for
Yeah.
example, because we're in this frenetic,
Yeah.
something really bad is happening. So tell me about how you do that.
Yeah. So there's different breathing techniques for different things. So it really depends on where somebody is in that state. So like you said, our nervous system, it's like a remote control to our body. It's that central thing that sends all those signals. The nervous system sends signals to the brain sends signals to the heart. It's all communication. And if we can send signals through our breath to our nervous system that we are safer, that we are calm, and that we're coming into that rest and digest, into that parasympathetic branch of our nervous system, it then lowers blood pressure, our heart rate, our breathing rate, which then allows us to feel calmer, to then think straight. So if our nervous system detects a threat, or that we've been sent into fight flight, it will then send signals to the brain to then release cortisol and adrenaline. Then our body is then flooded as if we are in a threatening situation. And sometimes it might be just triggered from a situation that's happened with our children. It might be our boss. It might be something like that, but it can't tell the difference between reality and imagination. So if we're already feeling anxious and we're starting to imagine like the worst case scenario or things are going wrong, then we're going to get those same feelings. So quite often when I see clients that are really highly anxious, we start to overthink. Our thinking part of our brain, where we think logically and rationally, is just kind of like switched off. We're going into survival mode. So like you said, when we're in that high anxiety state, when that fight flight, it's like life or death. It's like, we're not running away from a saber-toothed tiger, but it can feel like that. We think back to caveman time. So we go into this survival mode. So our heart rate goes up, our breathing, it becomes erratic. We can't think straight because we either want to fight or run away. And then have, like what we said, we've got the freeze, where it's kind of like the other scale, where we're just frozen, we're disconnected, we're dissociate from the situation. We don't know what to do. We can't think. We just, no words come out. So, neither is in a good state. And if our nervous system is dysregulated, which means that perhaps if we've had trauma, we've had chronic stress, our nervous system can sort of flip from one to the other really quickly. But what we want it to be able to do when we say that we're going to support our nervous system or we're going to regulate our nervous system, you probably hear that spoken about quite a lot, regulating your nervous system. It means being able to send signals to the nervous system to go into that parasympathetic. And we can't always be calm and relaxed all of the time. It's not natural. Even the calmest people aren't always going to stay there. And that's not the point. It's when we are in fight flight, what we want to be able to do is afterwards naturally come to a calmer state. We're going to go into fight flight. There's so many stresses in life. But if we can imagine that we can feel in a better place, and if we can use that through our breath to perhaps manage the fight flight, then come into that calm parasympathetic state for a while afterwards. We might go back into fight flight later on when something happens. We might even go into freeze. Sometimes we can do that if we've had a stressful situation. We can just want to hide away and shut down and go to bed and try and get rid of it. But if we can come into that calm state for a moment, it's like what we call vagal tone. It puts the brake on it. And the breath is the quickest way that we can do that. And we've got it there within us, but we bypass it. We sometimes forget that it's there and that it can actually be used as a tool. So when I work with clients, it is like, so giving them a toolkit that they can use in the moment when they're stressed or after an event, or even just small amounts on a daily basis can actually stop us going into huge fight flight spikes, or maybe not as bad. So if we can, it's like a muscle, if we can use it and be consistent and regular with it, that actually we're reducing that massive spike that we can go into when we're in fight flight.
Yeah. Because often what happens is our minds, as you said, are a bit like a computer.
Yeah.
So when our body goes into this fight or flight process, we automatically go to our minds and we firstly look for the threat, then we look for the dangers of the threat and start to catastrophize. And the more we follow those thoughts, the more it feeds our visceral system to fire up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, if we go into a place of, oh gosh, I've got a meeting with my boss, that spikes us. And if we were to breathe at that point, we can
Yeah.
bring ourselves maybe not fully into the
Mm.
parasympathetic because it's still a scary idea. But what we tend to do then is go, oh gosh, maybe I'm going to get fired. Maybe, and then I might lose my house and then I might lose everything, and that's where this feeding process of how we think and how we feel on a visceral level, how
Mm.
they're interconnected. In my mind, there are two key ways to manage anxiety. And one is to challenge the thinking, which is the mindset,
Mm-hmm.
and one is to manage the body. Those are, although they're intrinsically linked, they can actually be addressed in almost very separate ways, I
Yeah.
think. Breath is one of the ways, and it always blows my mind because if I say this to clients, if we're to breathe correctly, then actually it settles our system. And it people are very often surprised by that. They're like,
Mm.
breathing can't fix this feeling, surely. And
Mm.
actually, as you said, if we develop that muscle, we can access it far easier
Yeah.
if we utilize it when we don't need it in a way. So
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
breath work, it's very much about accessing it when we don't need it. So when we do need
Yeah.
it, muscle is nice and strong. Would you agree?
Yeah. Yeah. And we see a lot now about breath work. It's out there a lot. And deep breath work, there's certain techniques that you can use that are really good for deep healing, like on another level. And that's amazing. Like it can really shift stress and trauma that's stuck in the body. But we can also use it at a functional level of where we can just use it in our everyday. So it's what's amazing about the breath is that we can, you know, now and again use really deep breathing techniques that can shift, like I said, stress and trauma. and can be really great for healing, and going to really good facilitated classes to hold a space for that, because it can really shift out some past stuff that's going on. But we can also then use breath work on a different level, on a functional level, that can just support us in our daily life with our stresses. So, like, we can go deep dive into breath work, not as often, but we can use this functional breathing to help us in our daily lives of how we interact with people, how we respond to stresses. And it's good now and again to perhaps go and do a really deep healing class, but also if we can just learn tools that can help us through our daily lives, it's going to then have a ripple effect on all areas of our lives. So, like you said, the breath, helps calm that nervous system, but also our thoughts help us with the mindset. So that's where how I found hypnosis and breath work really fascinating, because it works with the body and the mind. You can use it separately, you can use it together. It's a great kind of thing for me to use where I can perhaps assess somebody and think, oh, actually, you need a bit more breath work than that, or actually, maybe let's work with that. Or so it's a great way I can use it in different ways for different people.
Yeah, absolutely. And this isn't new. If we think about
No.
it, many, many, many years ago,
Oh,
people talk
many years
about
ago.
taking a brown paper bag when somebody's in an anxiety attack or
Yeah, yeah,
I could breathe in and out of
yeah.
a brown paper bag. This isn't new to us, but
No.
I think as society has evolved, I think many, many people live in their sympathetic system. So they live in that fight or flight.
Yeah.
Even if it's low level rumbling,
Yeah, yeah.
and we get used to being
Mhm.
what people may identify as stressed or
Yeah,
worried, or and we it's almost like it's becoming a normal, isn't it?
yeah.
Because
It
of the
is.
pressures that we're
Yeah.
under.
So much pressures, and especially as parents and as mums, whether you want a career or you want to work, but you also want to be at home, and you also want to give the best to your children, and you want to be outside, and you want to do all of these things. There's so many pressures to be, and I think especially in this digital world now, like, with social media, we can compare ourselves so easily to other people's snippets of life. And this is what I say a lot to clients is we're comparing ourselves to snippets of editing, good lighting, a fleeting moment, and it's gone. But we compare that, and somebody might even be further along in a journey than we are. We can compare their sort of chapter 8 to our chapter 2. But when we can actually come home to ourselves and align ourselves with our core values of what we want in life or what we believe in, and we start to live to those, we pause, we embrace stillness a little bit more, because I know we've got busy lives, but if we can embrace stillness a little bit and come home to ourselves, that's when we can really hear ourselves. But if we are pushing ceilings down, we are comparing, we're soaking up so much content in our life through a screen, we are overriding the feelings here. So it's like what I say to clients, we've got this like internal alarm, and we've all got it somewhere. And our body keeps the score. And there's a book is called that. The body keeps the score. Our body is telling us, but it's either not loud enough because the noise around is too much, or we know it's there and we're pushing it away because we don't want to go there. But if we can sit in the uncomfortable feeling and listen and be still and breathe into it, it helps us be more compassionate and kinder to ourselves. And it helps us really tune into what's going on and how we can then start to shift out of that feeling, whatever that feeling is, to just know it's there and have an awareness and not push it away. But because of this busy world, we're push, thrive, push, getting through the next thing and the next thing. I need to be doing this, and busy, busy, busy. And I think busy has become this thing that we want people to see almost, because perhaps if we're embracing stillness and not doing very much, we're going to be looked upon as being lazy or not doing what we should. And I see a lot of clients who find that really hard to let go of telling people that they're busy. Oh, how are you? Oh, so busy. Like, how many times we say that our life's so busy at the moment, we don't want it to look like we're not doing very much. But actually, when we can get comfortable with stopping, pausing, breathing, we can get much more of a handle and control on what's going on around us and letting go of what we can't control. But like you said, the stress levels and this feeling of needing to be busy becomes normal. So when we actually do rest or be still, it feels really weird and it can actually feel unsafe because, especially, if we've had past traumas, we've lived a really long time in fight, flight, or freeze to actually be in that calm state for more than a few moments. Our nervous system detects that as a threat because, again, when we go back to caveman time, when we're still or when we're, relaxing, that's the most like threatening time. If you think back to, that caveman time, if we were asleep, that's like most threatening time because it's more likely you're going to be attacked at night. And it's quite often why we feel more anxious in the evening when we're going to bed because everything settles. I know I've got a lot of clients that say, busy, 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 keep going, keep going. The kids go to bed. And then my anxiety starts because we go back to survival. That's when it would happen. That's when we're most vulnerable. So we get these intrusive thoughts or these thoughts that spiral into worst case scenario. And then we start having these symptoms of then not being able to sleep or that our mind's racing before we go to bed or we're worrying about stuff or overthinking conversations that we've had because we're stuck in that survival mode.
Yeah. And I think, I was going to say to you about there is often resistance with being able to sit with our own emotions because they're
Mm,
so uncomfortable.
yeah.
So if you think about the conversation we're having, we're saying, just take a breath,
Yeah.
pause. And many people don't want to pause because they don't want to feel their feelings.
No.
Now, what I do want to say here is that often people don't want to feel their feelings because they maybe don't understand them. They don't understand what's going on. So because they don't understand what's going on, they start to analyze it and then they get scared because they can't understand it. And it
Yeah.
comes back to that thing of, I think, not analyzing it, not analyzing necessarily what that feeling is,
Mhm.
but just to sit with it. And I think when we sit with our emotions, even if we haven't got a name for them, we just know it doesn't feel good,
Yeah.
the sooner that we sit with them, they start to disperse.
Mm,
It's resist them that it causes us more
yeah.
problems going down the line.
Yeah.
So, as you said, and I think what you just said about for a few moments, this is not an easy thing to do.
No.
To sit with our breath, to
Yeah.
sit with ourselves, to sit with our emotions. This is not an easy thing to do if it's never been done before. Or
Yeah.
you've been told outwardly that it's not okay to sit with your emotions.
Mm.
So we're actually talking initially seconds, aren't we? To be able
Yeah.
to
It's just
look into that
pause.
state just for even seconds. And the more you do that, the more you can extend those seconds
Yeah.
to 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30
Yeah.
seconds. Before you
Yes.
know it, you're up to that 5, that 10 minutes. And then you can access it for seconds at times that you
Yeah.
need it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really important. Would you agree?
Yeah. And I think, when we've got this internal alarm and we can just sit with it and allow these thoughts to just come and go, and they do disperse. They do disperse. And, and I use a lot of visualization with clients who are even imagining thoughts being like clouds.
Mm.
They change, they pass, they go wispy and disappear. So if we can imagine that they're there and we're not pushing those clouds away. We're going to let them just pass by in our mind. It might be big and fluffy and dark, but also they can change and they pass. Again, we can use visualizations like a wave, those thoughts, they really rise and can feel really uncomfortable, but then they do just come back down the other side. So if we can just allow that, pause and breathe into that. And with that, I can learn that internal alarm that I talked about. If you've got a scenario like, I don't know. I think it was like your boss, like you're saying, if you were going ask for a pay rise or you want some time off or you perhaps something went wrong or whatever, and you might be at your desk there and you're feeling okay. And then the boss might say, I don't know, hey, can we have a chat later? Or I need to talk to you later. And you're like, yeah, okay. And then you feel it that like,
Mm.
oh my God. And you go straight into what have I done? And it might not even be about you, but the mind goes to that negative bias straight away, and then we feel it. And that's where we want to catch that internal alarm. So, like, oh, yeah, okay, can we have a meeting? Yeah, sure. Bang. You either feel it right there in your chest, it's there in
Mhm.
your tummy, it's in your throat where you think your throat is closing, or you might even have a situation with your child that you perhaps find hard to deal with. They might come to you with something, or you might even have to sort out a conflict or something. And if you're not, depending on how you've been parented, if you've not can deal with that very well, it might knock you right there. Or you might even get a message from school. I don't know. Can we have a chat at the end of the, oh, and it goes straight there and you feel it. This is where the pause really helps before we react. So react doesn't mean that you're just saying something. It can be in an argument again or disagreement. We can react with a comment that perhaps afterwards you might think, I really probably shouldn't have said that. Or we might go into defense mode because we feel we're being attacked. So we might lash out with something and then afterwards think, maybe I shouldn't have said that. So you can use pause in that moment when you're having a conversation with somebody, or even if you're not having a conversation and you get a message, I don't know, it might be an email, it might be your boss saying, can we have a chat later? Or it might be something that starts a trigger in the nervous system. Wolf, you feel it, that internal alarm. When we pause, notice where you feel it. Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your throat, in your tummy? And you want to just have the awareness that it's there. We're not going to push it away. Know it's there. And then when we can pause and breathe through that feeling, even imagine that breath going into that area wherever you feel it. Mine is my chest. It's like bang, something has hit me right in my chest and it feels crushing. It feels, and I know it's there. And I find that when I even do this, straight away my hand goes to my chest. It's like, oof, I felt that. Or if I'm feeling someone else's pain, it's there. I'm like, and I'm doing this, like, oh, I really felt that. And I can breathe into that space. So what we want to be doing is pausing, noticing, having that awareness. Notice how we feel. Where's the tension? Are we clenching our jaw? Are our shoulders suddenly going up? Are we gearing ourselves up for that fight, flight? And we want to be able to just pause and breathe. And when we do a few rounds of breathing, the thoughts start to disperse and we can start to change our perspective on something. Okay, the boss needs to speak to me. That's all right. Maybe I can just go and ask. Maybe I can just knock on the door and say, actually, yeah, I'm happy to have a chat. Can you just let me know what it's about? It confirms then that those thoughts cannot spiral then. But when we can pause in that moment, or if our child is having a tantrum, like they all do, but initially it sends us, like mine used to be, if my twins were having a wobble, so might even have a double wobble, they might even be having a wobble at the same time, which is always a treat, out somewhere. My biggest fear or my trigger is what people thought of me. So if they were out and they were having like a double whammy, as I used to call it, I want to react straight away. I want that situation to go away because the threat of someone else judging me is so big and so huge. It's taken over my whole body. I've lost my train of thought or even connection of what's happening with them. It's suddenly all about eyes are on me. And then they'll go into that fight flight and you're frozen. You just want them to get up. And their reaction might even be to just pick them up and be like, or be like, what are you doing? Like, get up, get up, get up, rather than, okay, let's take a pause. And when you can pause, breathe, feel where you feel it, even in that moment, just breathe. This threat over here of what other people think just starts to just dial down. Like, okay, it might still be there, but it dials down enough for me to respond to what's going on rather than panic and think everyone's looking at me. Everyone thinks I'm a really bad parent. Everyone thinks I'm out of control here. That was like my biggest thing. So when I was able to breathe into it, see it a little bit more clearly, pause, come down to their level and allow them to match how I am acting. Let's take a moment. What's happened here? And try and negotiate and try and resolve that situation so that then I can calmly go out of the supermarket or whatever it is. But when you get that trigger, whether it's the boss, whether it's the children, having a wobble, pausing, like nothing bad is going to happen unless it's a dangerous situation. And we know the difference. pausing allows us to come into ourselves and think clearly. Because when we're in fight flight, thinking clearly goes out the window and react. And we just overreact. So there is so much power in pausing, and it is just a moment to come back into the body. Powerful. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think when you were talking about tantrums, children are dysregulated. When they're in that space, they're dysregulated, and often an automatic response, like you've just said, because we may fear judgment
Mm,
of other people, and that's something we have to look at. That you,
yeah.
from a mindset perspective, that's
Yeah.
something to look at, because what is that? They're complete strangers. Why
Yeah.
do we
Yeah.
care?
Yeah.
Um, but what then happens is we become dysregulated. But
Mm,
we've not just got children that are dysregulated, because we've just bought into that as well. So they're
yeah.
out of control,
Yeah.
and then we feel out of control. And actually, it's our role to try and take control of that situation.
Mm.
And I don't necessarily mean get out, you need to
Yeah.
stop feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
What I mean is exactly what you've just described, of if we remain calm and we model that to our children, they're more likely to become regulated, because
Yeah.
they can see that you've got this, and you're together,
Mm,
and their system can start to settle, because
yeah.
they can start to communicate
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
happened, why it's distressed them so much, and
Yeah.
have those conversations.
Yeah. And that power of pausing and breathing can have such a ripple effect in all areas of your life when we can start to notice those little signs, those little alarms that are happening. And when we've chronic stress, like you said, if we've had chronic stress for a really long time, it doesn't even have to be really big events. It can just tick along stress. And we just know that it's there, but we're just like, oh, just kind of override it and override it. But when we can work with our breathing and we can calm ourselves down, we manage situations a lot better, which then ripples out into our children or our family or who we're with. And then we start to notice then, "Oh, I don't, that's so much better." And then we get a little bit of that hit dopamine. It's like, oh, you feel quite proud of yourself. You're like, oh. And that's what I notice with clients when we start working with the breath and the mindset. And like 6 months ago, I would have never reacted like that. I would have just gone completely off, or I would have burst into tears, or I would have. And this is the things that I try and get them to notice, is noticing the little shift. And it's so lovely to see when they're like, do you know what? 3 months ago, that situation would have completely erupted, and it didn't. And I feel really great about that. And not only with their children, it's with their work, anything. I had a lady the other day that said, when I always say, what's been different about this week? What's worked? What have you noticed? She's like, I had a flat tire. It's like, oh yeah, it's really annoying. She was like, 6 months ago, I would have just burst into tears. I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have panicked. I would have thought it ruined my day. I would have been late. Spiral, spiral, spiral. There's nothing you can do. Got a flat tire. And she said, I just thought, just breathe. She's like, I don't know what to do here for a moment. So I'm just going to pause. I'm just going to breathe. She said, so I just sat for a few minutes, did the techniques that we did, just breathe it through. I was like, right, okay, you know what I need to do now? I just need to phone here. I need to let work know that I'm going to be late. I've got a flat tire. She said, but I would have instantly burst into tears. I would have just panicked that I've got to tell work that I'm going to be late. Then my mind would have gone to, then the clinic would have been late. Then that meant the patients would have been late. And it cascaded. And she's like, I didn't cry. I just breathed and
Mm.
looked at the situation, that it was a flat tire. There's nothing I can do other than call someone to get some help, step out the car, all of those things. She said, otherwise, she said, I know for a fact that before I came and did this work, I would have just cried and I wouldn't have known what to do, because I would have just gone straight into this overwhelming feeling of this one thing now has such a big knock on effect to the rest of the day. The day's ruined. And she's like, my mind would have gone straight to that. The day is ruined. She was like, I was a little bit late. My boss was fine. Somebody else covered the clinic. Like, it just worked out when I suddenly went, okay, I'm going to pause here just for a moment before my mind races to the worst case scenario. So it's the little things that it starts to have a ripple effect on. It's
Yeah.
not just massive stressful situations. It's little things that can happen in our daily life. Things like that can happen. Washing machine's going to break down, our car's going to break down, or there's going to be a huge traffic jam and we're going to be late for something. but we're like, oh no, oh my God, and I've been there before. And my anxiety is so high that, a traffic jam I would literally be at the wheel going, oh my God, I'm like, this can't happen. And what is the worst case scenario? I'm going to be late. I'm just going to be a bit late. Wait, no one's going to die, nothing. But my reaction would be straight away to go into being like tearfulness, to feel like the whole day is ruined now from this one small piece. When we can pause, breathe, changes our whole perspective on how we manage
Yeah.
things.
Yeah, because this is really aligned to taking control of the controllable. And,
Yes.
if we think about that, and I'm sure many people will be able to relate to this, road rage.
Yeah.
You're late, you're running late, somebody's right in the middle of your way, they're driving really slowly, anger comes in.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's often the fight element.
Yeah.
It's anxiety of, I'm going to be late. I just want this person to get out of my
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
What I say to people is, what's really important to remember is you can only control the controllable. You can
Mm,
get crossing your car. What I want you to think about is, what might that person in front of you be going through right now?
mm,
Are they an old person? Actually, they can only drive really slowly. In order to maintain their independence, they drive really, really slowly because they're not ready to not have that level of independence. And it enables them to get from A to B. From that compassion place of,
yeah.
there is only so much that we have control over. And I do think, as a society, and I've done this for sure, it takes me 25 minutes to get to my office. So I may give it half an hour most times.
Mm,
And I can't be surprised if there's a traffic jam
yeah.
and I'm going to be late,
Yeah.
because I've almost set out from a place of,
Yeah.
nothing's going to get in my way. So we have
Yeah.
this idea, don't we, that the world shouldn't get in our way. And actually it does. And that's
Yeah.
within our gift to be able
Yeah.
to control that. But
Yeah.
what we do is control our response. And
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah.
saying, should
Yeah.
we
And we
the
can,
whole
yeah,
lot?
is to be able to control how we respond, perceive and act on a situation, and breathing is just so helpful for that. And we hear it a lot, don't we? People say just breathe, take a breath. We hear it because it goes back, to ancient times, that breathing. When we're in pain, we say just breathe, and someone's like, especially when our child, they
Yeah,
fall over, and the first thing we want to do is we say, okay, just take a breath, like just breathe through it.
yeah,
When we're giving birth, we're breathing, the breathing is there, but we only sometimes see it when we breathe through pain or we breathe through when we're giving birth. But you can breathe through so many things in your life. It doesn't have to be like an
yeah,
acute event. You can just breathe in the morning. So if we can imagine, okay, there's so many different breathing techniques. And I know a lot of people say, oh my God, I feel really overwhelmed. All these different things that we can use. But just in our daily life, like what is the most like important thing to take from breath work just in a day-to-day life? And if we can breathe through our nose, in and out through our nose more, we're going to feel better. If we can practice that a lot more, because we've got this amazing filter in our nose. So if we can be breathing in and breathing out through our nose and breathing in down to our tummy for an equal count in the day, checking in is great. So I always say, starting with an awareness, don't need to change your breath at all. Just have an awareness of your own breath. And quite often I have clients that say, I wake up with dread. I wake up and just say, no, I just want this day to be over before they even got out of the bed. Again, it takes a minute, 2 minutes. And even sometimes if you've got the kids jumping on your bed or they're there, you can still breathe. Like you're not going to hold your breath. So even if you've got children there, and I think a lot of parents think, oh, well, I can't do breath work because the children are around. It doesn't mean that we have to be sitting in a yoga pose, that we don't need to be in a class, in some yoga gear. We don't need the nice music. All of that is what we see that's held in classes, which is great. But what I call like functional breathing, where you can breathe on the tube to work, you can breathe in your car, you can breathe in your bed, you can breathe with your children. It's like you can take it around with you. It doesn't have to be like, right, everybody out. I need to sit here and be in this moment, because it's difficult when we've got children. And sometimes some people can do that. They can have a 10-minute practice by themselves on a yoga mat, and that's great. But if we're living in the everyday, the average parent's life, it's busy, you know, just a minute, 90 seconds of just tuning into your breath and breathing, even before you get out of bed, is going to calm it down. Because naturally, as we get up in the morning, we get a spike of cortisol. Like, that's just naturally what happens. So sometimes people could feel a little bit angsty or a little bit twitchy when they get up, because we get this spike anyway. So if we can breathe 90 seconds in through the nose and out through the nose, and the emphasis is just slowing the breath down. And we want to be imagining that in our tummy, we've got like a balloon. So if you're a visual person like me, you want to be imagining that we want to be filling the front, the sides, the back. So we want to be feeling it. So it's coming from under our ribs. We want to be feeling that expansion under our ribs. And again, it's like going to the gym. You're not just going to get it straight away, and that's okay. It's a practice. It's something for you to play around with. We can't expect to go to the gym and just like lift, 50K or whatever. We've got to work ourselves up. So to start with just the awareness, and that is not even changing the breath to begin with. That is just being an observer. So you don't even have to close your eyes, but sometimes if you can close your eyes for a minute to 90 seconds, you close it to the outside world, you come in, and we're just noticing. Just notice the rise and fall in your chest. Just notice the air coming in, the air leaving your body, perhaps noticing where your tension is. Is your shoulders up in your ears? Are you tensing your jaw? Are you clenching your teeth? Notice, notice, notice. When we start to come in and notice, then we can start to change that breath. And that is breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Just checking in with that, even if it's just, like I said, a minute, slowing it down into the tummy on that inhale, and then just letting go on the exhale. And it just brings us down. But if we want a kind of more of a deeper kind of breathing technique that we can do, it's called calm breathing. And that is breathing out through the mouth and breathing in through the nose. But the emphasis on this one is it's double the out breath. So that's what really gives that vagus nerve that runs down a bit of tone. When we have an extended exhale, it really, really helps with sending that signal that we're safe, that we're calm. So breathing in through the nose and out through the nose is where we can just pause for a moment, take that breath. But if we're really needing to calm down from something, if in doubt, breathe it out. So if you're in doubt with what technique to use, breathing it out, meaning just the longer the exhale. So we want to be, say, I don't know, breathing in for 3 and breathing out for 6. So it's double. You could do 4 and 8, but 3 and 6 to start with is quite a good one. So you're breathing in through the nose for 3. And again, on that inhale, we're breathing it down to the tummy, moving that diaphragm around, creating space. So breathing in for 3. And then breathing out through 6 through pursed lips. So it's a bit like this. And we're just sending it away, imagining we're sending that breath away as far away as we can. So it's in for 3, out for 6. Or once you've got kind of used to that, you can step it up to 4 and 8, as long as the out breath is double. So that's a really good one. When you know you've got a bit of an event coming up, or you're driving to work, you're feeling a little bit tense, just double the exhale out through pursed lips, sending it out. But the important part is the inhale goes down into the tummy. Because again, when we're stressed and we're anxious, we short, shallow breaths from our chest, or we might even hold your breath. I used to be a breath holder. So anything stressful, I just hold my breath. And then I'd feel like I needed to take this really deep breath afterwards. And it's like, I'm holding my breath. But if we can breathe it down into the tummy, that is the key thing. You're going to really feel a shift in how you feel. And if we're doing it regularly, every other day, every day, a couple of minutes, 90 seconds to begin with, is studies have shown that it can really change how you feel. So if you can do this regularly, it shifts your feelings, emotionally, spiritually, physically, mentally. We create a shift in how we feel. And then we start to experience more things like joy, gratitude, happiness, contentment. We start to access more of that through the breath by just stopping and pausing. And you can, pausing can even be going for a walk or stepping away from a situation is powerful. Okay, I don't know what to do right now in this moment. I'm just going to step away. We could just pause, step away, open the back door, take a bit of fresh air, take a breath. We can then come back to the situation with more clarity, more clear thinking, more calmness, and then we can respond. So you can use pause in different ways. And another thing I say to clients, if they're like, I've got so much to do, I've got this massive to-do list, I don't know where to start, that's where you need to go for a walk. That's where you need to pause. You might not think you've got time or the capacity, but when things are so overwhelming with so many things to do, and you've got this to-do list and you're like, I don't know where to start, that's the time to not do anything, which sometimes feels a bit weird, especially if you're like a real doer, a real busy person. That's when you need to pause, meditate, breathe, go outside, because then when you come back to it, you can respond to that to-do list in such a better way. You have more of a strategy. You can work out the things that are more that needed to be done first. When you look at this big to-do list and you're so overwhelmed with it, that's when you need to take yourself away and breathe and a walk or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you, because I think that 20 minutes, half an hour that you take to do that walk, actually you'll get that back 2, 3, 4, 5, tenfold from a productive perspective.
Yeah.
Just something I just wanted to say about the in and the out breath.
Mm.
As you just said, that a lot of people are chest breathers, especially as adults. Babies don't. They breathe through their tummy, through the
Yeah.
diaphragm and into the tummy.
Yeah.
As we grow older, and it's not a biological thing, it's where we've just got simply
Yeah.
frenetic in lives that we
We've just been
start.
conditioned through the busy life to breathe in a different way.
Yeah. So one of the things I think is important to just acknowledge here is that in breath and then the out, the double breath can be really difficult. However, what I would say is that even if you do the 3 in breath and the 1 out breath, and then on the next breath, try for the 2 or even
Mhm.
1.5, and then try for the 3. So it might not be an instant. I can
Yeah.
do the in and the out and the double out. It
Mhm.
might just take a
Yeah.
few breaths before you can
Yeah.
stretch your lungs in that way and breathe out in a way that is slower and more considered, more
Yeah.
considered. Because it
Yeah.
can take a little while. And
Yeah.
I think also it depends how much your diaphragm
Yeah.
has been activated.
Yeah.
People that do cardiovascular exercise, their diaphragm will naturally have been activated, because in order for us to push ourselves from an exercise perspective, from a running perspective, when you first start running and you're like, I can't breathe,
Yeah.
I breathe.
Yeah.
And actually, the more you run, the more we actually activate and
Yeah.
utilize the bottom of
Yeah.
our lungs.
Yeah.
So,
And it's the same with breathing. And that's why, it's always good to say to just start with awareness first.
yes.
Where do you feel it? Is it coming from your chest? Can you feel it in your tummy? Just start with your awareness. That is like the building block to any breathing before you start to build yourself up. And then it's slow, steady, just in through the nose and out through the nose.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter about the count, whether it's 2 and 2, 3 and 3, whatever. But that's where you can start to train it. And then you can start to use techniques like the calm breathing, the double one on top. But if we're not used to breathing, we're breathing, but if we're not used to breathing in a right way, it's like running. It's like going to the gym. It's a practice. It's not a quick fix. It has to be used. And the diaphragm sometimes can get stuck because we've been breathing from our chest for so long. So if we're a complete beginner to breathing, to be able to start to add in like the double breath or even longer, we need to be breathing like we were with babies, which is just down into the tummy, in through the nose and out through the nose. That is where to start. It's what we call is optimal breathing. That is a building block. And when you do start to breathe a little bit more consciously into the tummy, putting your hands under your ribs and feeling that. And it's to play around with. You can just practice in the day. so that then later on you can then build on other techniques. There's lots around box breathing, triangle breathing, alternate nostril breathing. They're all for different things. But if we are just trying to function through our day, it's practicing breathing down into the tummy
Yeah.
and in through the nose and out through the nose. But then we can build on using that double out breath to help us in a situation when we're needing to feel a bit more calm, or whether it's before an event or after an event or on the way to work or whatever. You can just be doing it in the car. But to start, the building block is just building it up, awareness. And even if it's just awareness for a few days,
Mm.
just check it. Then start to, okay, can I feel it? And even putting your hands on your tummy, hands on your heart space, and just feeling the hands rise, or even having your hands on your ribs and breathing into your hands, allowing that rib cage to start expanding. And it might feel tight, it might feel uncomfortable. But again, the more we do it, it's like a muscle, we'll start to loosen it, the diaphragm will start to move down, will start to create more space. So awareness, optimal breathing, breathing down into the tummy, practicing that first, and then doing that double out breath a little bit later on, or when we've got a situation coming up, or we can't think, just know that double the out breath if you can, and just building it. 2 and 4, 3 and 6, 4 and 8, and just building it up. And you'll start to feel, when you start to notice and use to practice it, that when you start to get to 4 and 8, you really feel the space, and you start to notice sensations in your body that it's changing, getting that lovely oxygen in and that carbon dioxide exchange, and it can really nourish your cells and get you to start to feeling so much better in your body.
Absolutely. And I think when we're stressed and anxious, we have a lack of oxygen that's going to our brain
Mm,
because we're breathing in such a shallow way.
yeah.
And therefore, by default, we can't think straight and we
No.
get a foggy mind. So then
Yeah.
we feel like we're out of control even more. One of the things I think can be really helpful, some people like to do. So, you said about earlier, some people will feel that they need to sit on a yoga mat and with their
Yeah.
ear on. One of the things I think is really, really powerful is when we are stressed or anxious, we often are disconnected from
Mm,
ourselves. So, a really useful thing to do, I think, is to put your hand on your chest
mm.
and
Hand on your heart. Yeah.
feel your hand on your chest, not just put it there. You have
Yeah.
to
You feel
feel
it.
your hand on your chest. And somehow that just enables us to, or it adds to being able to reconnect with
Mm,
ourselves. So, if you're that person that you think, well, I can't just stand and breathe, then almost symbolically pop your hand on your chest and just take that breath. So
mm.
align those two things together, maybe, because I think it's really important to be able to give yourself that permission to pause. And if it means that you need to do something, whether it be sit on the yoga mat or go to a different space, I don't think we have to do that. But I think that comes with practice. Would you agree?
Oh,
That,
yeah. Yeah.
because the mindful breathing concept is we don't actually have to be doing anything other than what we're doing to be able to
Mm,
breathe mindfully or even be mindful.
yeah.
Uh, we just need to be in the moment.
Mm,
But I think that can take a bit of time for the brain to accept that we can introduce these things in our daily life. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
Walk in with sorting the kids out, we can still breathe
Yeah.
this way and remain calm and enable our system to calm.
Yeah.
Do you teach your children?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It is hard to teach children to do it. And one of my twins is actually has autism, so it's quite difficult to get him to focus. But when he starts to feel overwhelmed with a situation, then I can say to him, remember how we breathe. And first of all, when he starts to breathe, like sniffing up, like, so trying to get them to do it. But that's what's really nice about putting your hand on your chest, is because you can get them to feel it on your chest and the tummy as well. Because it's like, if we can feel your hand on your tummy, you can almost make the connection to breathe down into your tummy. So this is, it's really nice for children to be able to like put their hand on their heart and feel their heartbeat and their tummy. And we want to imagine that when we breathe, we're going to be breathing into that. and getting them to feel their ribs, when they're lying down sometimes and say, you can just feel it. And again, using it with them, like imagining the balloon because they've got imagination, fill the balloon up. We want to push it tight, but we're just going to gently expand that and get them to feel the tummy. But doing it with them is really, really nice thing to do, like at the end of the day as well, because it feels like you're connecting with them, but they're also connecting with themselves. And it's such a powerful tool for children to feel in control of a situation, whether it's in school. And it'd be amazing if we could get more into schools, that this is really important, that to teach children to breathe and to be able to manage their thoughts. If we had that, I mean, God, if you think back, if we had that in school, like how
Oh,
much nicer would it be? But to be able to do that and connect, it is lovely. And talking them through it in a calm voice, when they are upset, let's take a breath together. Before we even have any discussion, sometimes it's like, let's just take a moment and breathe. And it just allows sometimes conversations to happen, because I think, again, like sometimes my children can be so like grumpy or whatever, and I don't want to talk. Sometimes we don't have to talk in that moment, but when we can breathe with them and pause, sometimes that's where then the conversation can come out. Where do you feel that in your body? And also to let them know it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to feel upset, but we've got to look at our actions that we take from that. And, that's what I try and say to them, is that it's okay to say, I feel angry. There's no shame in feeling angry about a situation, or that someone has said something to you and it's upset you, it's made you feel angry. So the breath can really help with acceptance of,
mm,
like, it's okay to feel that. And can you feel it? Yeah. And, like they might say, oh, my heart's really pounding. Okay, well, let's imagine we can breathe and we can slow it down. Can you feel it? Can you feel it slowing down? And then they're like, yeah, I can feel it slowing down. And then we can, once that happens, we can then get into a conversation of, hey, what happened there? Like, what did you feel when that person said that to you, or when that got broken, or, and it's giving them the chance to pause, but with you. And it is a lovely thing to do together, because it helps you calm down as well.
mm. Yeah, and I'll go back to what I said earlier about children, when they're in a state of flux, are looking for safety and security. So if we're calm, then they're more likely to follow our suit as well, because they feel that we are holding them, essentially,
Yeah.
metaphoric, and we're holding the space as well.
Yeah.
And I think this is where it can get really fractious in homes, is
Mm.
that if we react to our children's distress and we become distressed, they are likely to then become more distressed, because
Yeah.
they can see there's a reason to be distressed, because you're my
Yeah.
mum or my
Mm.
dad and you're getting distressed, so there must be a reason. No, they don't
Yeah.
think about it in that way, but
Mm.
our actions can really change the shape of how they cope in the moment. And I
Yeah.
think that is so, so important, of being able to take that breath, being able to have an awareness of how we're feeling, and be able to help our children to learn
Yeah.
that skill as well. Because
Yeah.
talking about managing our mental health as well, and
Yeah.
if we really truly understood the value of, if we breathe correctly and we can breathe into our tummy and blow that balloon up, actually we can usually cope with most situations,
Yeah.
because our emotions shift and move all of the time. We are
Mm.
not going to feel the same today about a situation tomorrow, because actually
No.
tomorrow a lot of resolution would have come
Yeah.
about. So if we can help manage our emotions in the moment,
Mm.
uh, and help to disperse them in the kindest way possible, because I think
Yeah.
just simply validating how we feel, and
Yeah.
it's okay to feel,
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
really powerful.
I think it is hard as a parent to,
Mm,
you want to rescue. You don't want them to feel like that. So I think quite often, I know I've definitely done it, where you're just like, oh, you don't need to worry about that, or you don't need to feel that way about that. Just, forget about that now. But actually, that isn't teaching them to deal with the situation. It's just because we feel uncomfortable, because we don't want them to feel sad. But it's giving them tools to manage those things. But I think I know I was definitely like a rescuer in the way of like, "Oh, I don't want them to feel like that." So by just sort of saying, "Oh, well, let's not worry about that now," or "Let's not," but you can see that they are worrying about it and they are thinking about it, but you want to take it away from them. But actually, I found over the years through many mistakes, I can tell you that actually we do need to allow them to feel whatever those feelings are. And also to allow them to see that we're still managing to work through stuff. Like I might say to my children, "Oh, mummy's just having a minute. Mummy's just, I just need to take a breather a minute. I'm finding that really difficult. Or I don't actually know what to do with that for the moment. I'm just trying to figure this out. It's really annoying because we can't get rid of these things that happen, like the computer breaking or the washing machine breaking or, water pouring through somewhere. And we're just like this at the tipping point, and then the kids suddenly need us, don't they? Or they decide to open up to us about something that's happened at school and we're like midway through something and it's like, I can't deal with this now. But it's okay to say, actually, I'm finding all of this a bit much. I'm just going to take a breath, or I'm just going to step outside, take a moment to show them that we are going to feel anger. We are going to feel all of these things, to push it down, but feel it and breathe through it. And it's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think helping children to develop these skills is so important, but it does all start with us. And
Yeah.
if we can support our own central nervous system, if we can
Mm,
support our own mental health, that is huge modeling to our children, and being able to show them rather than tell them. Teaching rather than telling is so much more
mm,
powerful. Because going back to what you were saying earlier about, the reassurance piece. Oh, you don't need to worry about that. You
mm,
you don't need to worry about that. Again, one of the things I'd like people to just take a moment, and sometimes we might need to take a breath to feel this and see this. But as adults, if we're
mm,
worried about something or we're stressed about something, and our partner says, "We don't need to worry about that," what does that actually do?
mm,
It makes us more stressed, or
mm.
even maybe angry with our partner, because even though they've tried to reassure us, actually what it's done is invalidated how we feel, because it's like, you don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
It's coming from a really lovely place.
Yeah.
The impact it has as adults is that I don't feel heard,
Mm,
and children feel the same. And
yeah.
sometimes I think when we're alongside our children and thinking about how we're going to deal with a situation, we just need to have a look internally and go, how would I like for this to be resolved? Now, that's not to say the answer is going to be there for your child.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
gives you a platform from human to human how we can navigate this landscape.
Yeah. It's
We
all
just,
there.
it's
Yeah, it's
all
just being
there.
able to pause and access it and not override that. And also being compassionate and kinder to yourself on that reflection, because we're not always going to be able to respond in the way that we want to. Sometimes we are going to react, but it's about imagining it's your friend, just, okay, what can I learn from that? Maybe I could have done that differently. Next time, maybe I will take a pause. We're reflecting all the time and sort of looking at how we deal with things. So if we can do it with a kind voice and nurturing and supporting rather than beating ourselves up because we reacted, because it's going to happen. But if we can start to learn to tune into our breath a little bit more regularly, it's not going to happen as often, or it's not going to be as reactive as perhaps before. So, like you said, we do have it all there within us, but sometimes we don't always want to go there and look internally. But it is where all our answers are, here in our intuition and in our bodies.
I agree. And as a mum myself, what my experience of this is that the more you do it, the quicker you realize when you've been triggered.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've just got one question for you. If there were one piece of advice that you can give parents, what might that be?
Just start. Just have a go.
Yeah.
Just, just pause.
Thank you so much, Helen, for
Thank you for
joining
having me.
me. It's been an absolute joy speaking to you. And I'll be adding all of your details to the show notes so that if people want to access you and see how you can help them, then they'll be able to connect with you through when this is published.
Yeah, great.
Lovely to speak to you. Thank
And
you.
to you. Thank